So I think before we get to the agenda, if anyone has any public comments, make before we get to the agenda items, now is the time to do it. We like to keep it 3 minutes, unless you need an interpreter, might never give you 6. So.
Could I speak when we discuss the items, or do I?
Yes.
Can I raise my hand when I want to discuss something in particular, or should I do it now? Public comment.
So here's, as I understand it, I'm trying to keep the committee in line with city regs. You can speak now on any subject you want to before we get to the agenda for 3 minutes. When we get to an agenda item, you're welcome to speak again.
Okay.
And if you'd like us to modify that a little bit before you raise your hand when you want to ask.
I'll do public comment.
Okay.
Okay, Mike McLeod, City Council, Place 4. I had discussions with you, Bernardo, concerns I had about the structure being built down there in the floodway. I think there's interpretation that it's not in the floodway, it is in the floodway. However, we do have photographs showing the bottom piers are in underwater 25 feet. So you call it the floodway or call it the floodplain, whatever, but we have pictures showing that it's 25 feet. I like the structure. I like the way the I-beams are. The concern I have is the cold joint. What I call the cold joint is when you pour 24 feet deep into the ground, you put a rebar cage and a sonotube, you drill holes, you put 3/4 inch Simpson bolts to Simpson ties. That has to be a little concerned, because I'm no expert. Do we have a structural engineer on Zoom, or is there a structural engineer available with the city, with Veritas, or is there a structural engineer with the developer? Just to be a question to ask the structural engineer. Bottom line is, again, I'm not a builder, but my question is, if you dug holes 24 feet, why didn't you put steel pipe or steel tubing all the way down to 24 feet in concrete? Therefore, you would not have that joint. You would not have what I call a cold joint. Okay, that's my concern. In the article I just sent you guys, there was a gentleman that built a house, they said, on 16-foot poles on the Guadalupe River 30 years ago. He was a big kayaker, activist. The whole structure got washed away in that big flood. So all I'm saying is, what we're doing here is not typical building. We're building, I think it's a floodway, typically, but whatever you want to call it, there needs to be special emphasis placed on these structures, because I have real concern. And one more thing, and I'll shut up. I made a motion on council to approve that subdivision plan based on the pipe being driven into the ground. It was their city planner that said that. She's not a structural engineer. However, I just have a problem with I like the design, but I have a problem with that cold joint. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mike. Matthew?
None. I'll prep my wife pretty good, so she shouldn't need to waste your time anymore with me.
Until I get stuff, I'm like,
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from our last meeting. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Yeah.
What I'm having a lot of trouble. It's really muffled on my side, so I'm having a lot of trouble hearing things.
Are you okay with the minutes?
Oh yes, I approve the minutes. Yeah, when there's one person talking, it's easy. Two people gets a little crazy.
Yes, I just.
I was just asking him then if he was listening.
I heard that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Let's go straight to.
So do I need the board's approval to adjust the agenda to let our guests come early rather than late?
I don't think so.
I think I can do
I
that.
have no problem, but
No.
I don't think you
So-
need permission.
This would be the construction at Riverview.
No, dreams,
Well, we got them both on the agenda.
yes.
Okay. All right, right, so we will go to 1.6, construction at Dream subdivision. And I understand, I'd like you to make some brief remarks and then open yourself up to questions from our guests and the board.
Good.
So you're right.
Okay, yeah, so Dream subdivision, we're talking about particularly the house or the cabin home that's that we're building at the moment. So I'm Bernardo Rater, I'm the developer here. I've got David Fay here with us, he's our builder. And he can talk a bit more about, you know, his experience, but he's a local resident from the area, architect and builder by background, with more than 25, 30 years of experience.
About
Have you?
45 years.
About 40.
I'm only 38 years old, but
And the Riverview subdivision is a you know, originally a subdivision that got approved here at City Council. And in it, there's particular things that had to be considered. One of them was definitely the location of the floodway and also of the floodplain, which are two separate elements. Those are regulated, as you guys know, by FEMA, and they're not like just random dots on a plan. They're actual, you know, FEMA data that indicates the actual geolocation of where the floodway is and where the floodplain is. After the Dream subdivision got approved, David here helped us get the permit through for the construction of the house with Bureau Veritas. We've got the, you know, confirming documentation of that house being built. We've got a structural engineer in-house that, well, not in-house, but of course that helped us design this house. We've got structural plans that are approved and sealed by him. I guess I've got David here because he's got a lot more experience in construction and structural matters. We did consider bringing our structural engineer here. He's great at engineering. He's not, you know, too good at speaking, but we can get any concerns in written form to him. He will be more than happy to address any concerns and explain different things, you know, load considerations, safety factors, you know, whatever concerns you've got, you name it, we can put it in writing, send back to him, and he can respond back. David has also been in a lot of conversations with him, so anything that we can address here, we will do. If there's things that we cannot address here, we'll take your concerns back to our structural engineer, and he can respond back in writing.
Thank you, sir. Do you have something you'd like to say before we start answering questions?
yeah, just a few comments on. One of your comments, Mike, was, you know, why do the engineer epoxying bolts, and it's just the way they do it now. They do not any longer like to run steel all the way down into the concrete. It'll rust and degrade the concrete and the steel, but there are different ways to attach. But the epoxy bolts, it's the way they're all doing steel to concrete joints now. Like Bernardo said, the structure is fully out of the floodway. It's in the floodplain, but it's out of the floodway. But as we all know, I think all of you have lived here for a long time. The floodway and the floodplain are only the floodway and the floodplain until the floods again higher. Like happened to us, 10 years ago or whatever, 8 years ago. So there's no guarantees on anything. We, from the floodplain level, it's suggested by FEMA and everybody else to bring a finished floor up 2 feet out of the floodplain. We decided to bring it up 4 feet out of the floodplain just to be safe. And, you know, once again, that's safe until more rain comes, so, it's, you know, as per the structural engineer, it's engineered to withstand wind. The wind load on it is far more than the water load. It's being engineered to category C, 120-mile-an-hour winds. And fortunately, we haven't seen that. I think across the river, I've had 65, something like that, but, so believe it or not, the water pressure against the columns is about 85% less than what's calculated for the wind load. Let's see, what was the other?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, if I may, just to kind of drill it down into a bit more plain vanilla there. What the structural engineer has told us is the way that they calculate the loads for this report is they look at the actual velocity of the water calculated for, you know, a 1 in 100 year event. Then that velocity gets applied to a specific area. That's where the columns are, and that's where the pressure will be putting down. So the amount of load gets calculated by that, plus the area that's being affected. Now that compared to the load that you get from wind to a much larger area, which is the facade of the house, the vertical push or that you get to on that structure, also at a higher level that creates a higher force of momentum, is much larger than what you get from the water. So it's designed for the water, but also for the wind. And the wind in this case has higher pressure on that area, and the structure is designed to withstand.
Well, it's a hell of a lot more surface area up there than it is in the.
That's right. That's right.
So Mike,
And the whole lever arm thing.
That's right.
Right.
Mike, you got a question?
Yeah, based on my background, I was a coating insulation engineer for 31 years. I know about corrosion. For example, here in the South, where they don't use salt, they don't put powder coated rebar into bridges. In concrete, and there's no issues with corrosion. And putting a steel column in concrete is not an issue in the South, unless you use salt on the roads or you're on the coast. So that's a chloride issue. So
Right.
my question is, what's the shear strength of that pier? Like in welding, you have a shear strength. So the problem I have with that, you talk about wind and hurricanes. I'm not concerned about the current. I'm concerned about an object hitting that column. Like
So there's no guarantee against that.
well.
There's no
Again,
guarantee
but
against it.
you're not a structural engineer, and pardon me, sir. But I would like to see the drawings. I would like to talk to a structural engineer. I want to see your design, what type of lag bolts, how deep they are,
Sure.
your compression strength of your concrete, the placement of the rebar, the cages. Like I said, it concerns me. Not common sense, but you do have a cold joint. When you have steel on concrete, forget the wind. Wind's not a factor, it's that shear strength, because in Wimberley and 15, what happens when a cypress tree hits it, that could take it, but when you have a damming effect, it will take a highway bridge. And then I know you're on the edge,
Right.
you're on the edge of the bank, but it would be nice to have, do y'all have a copy of the drawings of this
Yes,
design?
we're good,
Yeah,
I can bring the engineering and show you.
yeah, I've seen.
But
And in my permit package, the full engineer drawings are in.
I would personally like to talk to a structural engineer, have this discussion, nothing against you, sir, but I'd like to talk to a structural engineer. Because that article I sent you, that disaster on the Guadalupe River, it was a steel count 16 feet on pole.
So let the minutes show that the information that you have requested will be provided to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a quick question for you, and you can elaborate on that.
Yeah.
How are y'all standing on the required distance from the road?
There's a 25 building setback line.
I know it looks like when I'm just driving by, you're all close to that.
It's, so from the property line, the building line is 25 feet. We're about 28 feet in.
All right,
So instead of the building envelope, I went in another 3 feet. And then the bottom columns are about, I forget, about 12 feet.
8 to 12 feet.
Yeah, somewhere 8 to 12 feet inside the floodway.
so
Before the floodway.
Before the flood.
the floor level, the lowest heating and food area is 2 feet above the.
4 feet above the floodplain level.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we decided to go an extra 2 feet.
Question, Joy,
Go ahead.
Dorothy,
Go ahead.
No. I mean, my thing that I love, like, I have a couple questions. First off, when was the permitting from FEMA study done regarding the floodway? Because that's the problem that we have had for many, many years now, is the exact location of where the floodplain and where in the floodway. And we have markers, and a lot of those are based on prior floods.
So that's an answer, a question that I can answer. Floodplain and floodway were different around, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago. FEMA updated those with the Atlas 14 data, which was based on new information of recent flooding events. One of them, I believe, would have been with what happened in 2015. And the FEMA floodplain and floodway lines were updated. I think if I go back to the records that we had when we acquired the property, the floodplain and floodway were further into the river basin. And after we acquired it, and I remember it because, we got hit by this news of seeing the FEMA floodplain and floodway lines move further into the road. What we've got on the plans and what's approved and what was approved was based on the updated FEMA lines. Now, the other thing that we did have to do is when we put in the permit for the house, we had to do a flooding study. It was done by our engineers, Quattro Consultants, which are the guys that also did the design for Riverview Residences. They're engineers, highly regarded. They've got a lot of experience, and they're actually the replacement engineers for Caldwell County. I think Caldwell County uses Doucette. And then when Doucette submits a plan for a client of them, because they cannot be the reviewer as well, Quattro Consultants is the reviewer for Caldwell County. Those are the engineers that did this study. They went to FEMA to request their specific flooding data to be able to do that flooding analysis. That got submitted to the city's engineer, Gary Freeland, and was approved by Gary Freeland.
Do you have to have the dates when Gary approved the last plan?
It would have, I
I
assume.
don't remember the top of my head.
since 2015, when after those floods, they revised floodplains, where I live went from 2 feet above the 100-year floodplain to the floodway,
Yes,
all in one spiral stroke.
yes.
But as I understand it, whatever FEMA guidelines were there when you achieved your permit, that's what we go by.
That's right.
FEMA's not through revising stuff, they're gonna do it for years.
They will continue to revise that information. Is continuous studies that get changed. I don't know if it's every 2 years, every 4 years, but they do review
They
those.
do it regularly.
They do.
Well, it's not really for them.
Okay. We good? Okay,
Yeah.
so, what was the date for the permit when that was approved for development? And, I guess that would have been the last person to do that, would have been, Mr. Freeland?
Let me,
Yeah, Catherine was mayor at the time.
uh, let me check.
When was the permit? Applied for and approved?
Here, I've got,
My concern is, do they have an expiration date?
You don't matter.
here, it was approved in August, no, sorry. Check.
August of this year, though, right?
Mayor mentioned that it might have already been shared with Dorothy, the permit information.
Here. It was
I have not received anything from the
It
city
was
regarding.
approved March 10, 2025. Here,
That's correct.
here's, that's the
Thank
actual
you
permit right
Thank you very
there.
much.
So Joey, you got some more questions?
I have not seen that.
So I'm seeing that the road is at about 535 feet above sea level. The, base flood elevation is 374 and change. 2 feet above that, 539 and change, so basically the house is gonna be, the bottom floor is gonna be about 5 feet above the road.
Yeah, so the flood level at the street there is 537.6.
Okay,
And that's what I have on the,
okay,
That's
on the
about,
site plan,
I'm just saying 535, okay,
535, yeah. 537.6, I believe, is the new FEMA. Because that's what's stamped on the site plan, yeah. 537.6 is a floodplain, and
2 feet.
we went to, and the suggestion is to go 2 feet out of that, we went 4 feet out of that, so it's like, 541.6.
Lot,
Well, yeah,
okay,
like I said, the floodplain is a floodplain until
Right.
you get a bigger flood.
so, I have a big concern about erosion. I mean, a lot of these, FEMA numbers were derived before, that property was developed in 2022. In 2022, there were a lot of natural protective aspects of the flood, way, which were, destroyed. In other words, there was a lot of clear cutting, the natural vegetation was stripped, a lot of soil was moved from higher elevations to fill in some swales, natural swales, which were beneficial. And then finally, more non-native topsoil was brought in so that, some grass could be. So this all changes the natural properties of, or the absorptive properties of a floodway. It just, all those heavy machineries, compacting the soil, and so it won't, it'll be even worse than what our FEMA numbers are showing for people upstream and downstream. So
What will be worse?
erosion, water displacement, everything will be a little bit worse. I'm wondering if any of that was taken into consideration, when the hydraulic or flood studies were done.
Yeah, so the reason for just doing piers, small footprint piers, is so you have less disturbing the site and less scouring, less erosion. And that was factored in by basically just wanting to be good stewards of the riverbed. And, there's a number of ways you can do it, but that's the smallest footprint you can do is, embedded piers like that.
Right, and let's, want to stay out.
And you want to stay outside of the water, 100%.
Okay, and I guess my other question is, there's gonna be a lot of development across the street. A lot of impervious cover. And so that too, I wonder if that was being taken into consideration. There's gonna be a lot of driveways, rooftops, sidewalks, patios, parking lots, whatnot.
I think that on that one, usually what I've seen is that whoever comes in last needs to consider what's happened before them. So let's say we request, 25 lots. Those 25 lots will have to demonstrate that they comply with the regulations, that they're not causing any adverse impact to what's already been done. It's difficult for the people that come in first to know what's going to happen later on, because if we do, I don't know, 1,800 square foot homes, it's different to if we do like 4,200 square homes on the other side. So usually these things get factored into once the permit for that application gets requested, and that's my understanding. Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually, from what I've seen, that's the case. So those any other impact would be considered when those specific permits get requested.
So they're not completely permitted yet, because they can't be if they have to wait on construction, fashion construction.
Yeah. So the Riverview Residences, which is what's on the other side of the road, what got approved was the final plat to subdivide that property. The next step for them is, for those lots, is when there's a request to build a permit, they will have to request to build a permit and do the relevant documentation there at that point in time.
Okay,
And they are half acre lots, which is, leaves for a lot of pervious.
There are certain calculations that do get done at the preliminary and final plat, which is general assumptions in regards to impervious cover that those lots will have, and that's how the ditches on that community get designed. So as you can see, there's been a lot of new ditches built there. Those have been considered or done considering what usually would be built on those homes. But that, technically there's no building permit approved for those 25 lots yet.
there's no building permit has been approved.
For the homes,
for homes.
for the subdivision, yes, all the infrastructure that was approved, everything's been built, inspected by the city.
Yeah.
But for the actual homes,
Did they put a impervious calculation?
yes,
percentage on it?
yes, and I think that I can't recall what they factored in there. I would have to check.
Sure.
Back to them.
So, I'm gonna move on to the next question, Matthew.
Yeah, gentlemen, if the deemed piers were in the floodway, would you be allowed to build?
No.
Okay. Alright, so if you remember, November of 22, we had a couple hearings. I was not on council at the time, it was from the Glad Remnants Council. I specifically sent a map that you presided that showed the FEMA floodway. FEMA floodway is actually, if you look at the map, it's just 2 points that they arbitrarily picked. Upstream and downstream, and I know this for a fact because I went to the charm workshop in Luling and actually spoke to the FEMA administrator, showed them this map, showed them the map of your property. And at the time, when the topographical map was looked at from there, they actually didn't do a complete study of the elevation. They just said, we can't see it, this is where it's at. So if you actually look, extend that going across the property, the floodway line is actually just 2 points. The white building, well, he's only showing 3 lots, so it doesn't matter. The white building, which is down by Skull, the elevation of the base of that building is approximately 534, and that structure is in the floodway. Okay,
Yeah, down by the skull.
my school, that's in the floodway. So we go 3 lots up, and each lot is 100 or so feet wide, right?
Mhm.
We're not even going 1,000 yards further upstream. And now the floodway is at a base flood, an elevation of 519. And I made a comment about this, and I told the people that were on the P and Z committee that I would not have approved this purely because I don't believe the FEMA map is right. I'm not saying you did anything wrong here. I'm just telling you, I don't believe the FEMA map is correct. FEMA told me that the map was not correct. It is the job of the floodplain administrator to provide, and if you read 153, 25, and 26, it specifically gives the floodplain administrator the opportunity to actually understand the local topography of your particular town, and when you knowingly know it's not right. How does less than 1,000 feet upstream, and by the way, if you go further upstream, it's higher. Okay, so it goes all the way up to above 530 at the before your property. So how does it go from 530 all the way down to 519 and then go all the way up to 534? When there is no difference in the banks on both sides of the river. We're talking about 3 times my height. So I'm not saying you did anything wrong, but I believe in my heart that we have totally missed the boat about where the floodway is in this matter.
I agree with you because I've seen the flooding, but answer me this, aren't we confined and stuck with what
No.
FEMA has defined?
No, the
In
floodplain
terms of permits, aren't we?
No, the floodplain administrator has the authority to evaluate that.
Who is that?
Your Veritas.
Oh,
I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying Bernard did anything wrong, you know, I'm just saying that is our responsibility, that we are
So,
our ordinance within the city allows us to do that.
right, so you were talking about, and I can't remember what the name of the house, the White House, this Airbnb,
No, it's not here, well,
no, the White House, the
the old
yellow
White
house.
House,
The White House by Skull,
Yes,
we do know that's 535 approximately.
the base of that is about
The base.
534.
And then if you go upstream, farther away from us, then you have the
House.
the yellow house, which we know is, the base of that is the number you just said.
Yeah, it's over 530,
Yes,
and it's right on the floodway.
right. And
But
so
as you go
this
further
would
away
be-
from the coast,
yeah,
it's gonna go down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, because the water,
No,
you know.
yeah, I understand that. And so
I think that there's a couple of things, you know, first, you know, I get it, you know, we're, you know, there's engineers, there's FEMA, there's different authorities, there's us, you know, we rely on our engineers, and similarly, the city relies on the engineers to look at the regulations that, you know, the code at FEMA, flooding map, and you know, I think from that perspective, everything that has been looked and has been complied with and all the regulations, right? So that's one thing. Second thing is, well, are the FEMA floodplain and floodway maps correct? You know, I think that would require some investigation with FEMA. By that, you know, could be either way. Like, we don't know if the correct elevation there is 535, or if that's incorrect, and maybe it's 550. Like, we don't know where
You're using your map.
This is.
no, yeah, but if you look at, yeah,
Right, from that, so these questions need to be, given approval from you guys, for them to be given permission to
Yes.
answer them. It is
Sorry.
not
Is
right that
that is correct.
professionals are being exposed to the public like this, because,
Okay.
okay,
Is Michael Olson on?
I'm
so
trying to.
I have been concerned about what you're talking about, but if I'm sharing this today,
Yeah.
and I grant Mike permission to ask a question, is that all right or not?
I'm sorry, is
If I grant permission to the non-board members that are here to ask a question, is that right, is that good or bad?
Yeah, that's allowed, I'm just saying, if there's something that doesn't pertain to something that you guys want to know, you don't have to address it, they don't have to be exposed to address that,
I understand, I'm trying to keep that from happening.
yes. And,
So far, I think everything they've been asked is pretty germane.
okay,
Who were we missing?
that's Mo asking, they're bouncing everywhere, where can you give me the address? So the address would be 609
Northwest.
Northwest River.
But Mike, your arm's getting tired.
A picture's worth 1,000 words. You need to get that picture from the 2015 flood showing that river in flood stage. That shows everything. You know, the reason I say that is I've been through this. My house got flooded in 2015. At that particular time, the back of my house was in the floodway, the front of my house was in the floodplain. Now it's in.
I'm gonna interrupt, I sent her a link for the video that you're talking about.
Okay, great. So just to explain. Okay, so I know Debbie and Bruce, right? Their elevation is actually higher than where I live, okay? It's like he says, topography of the river, how it flows, okay? Their property got flooded from the front. The elevation was higher. So, but the strange is they got a foot higher they got a foot higher in depth than I did, because where my property is, it's a transition point from low bank to low bank. The river cuts to the right.
Well, where Debbie and Bruce live, that water came from Don's,
Yes,
across that
Yes.
bend and across that
yeah,
gravel.
went over the front.
And the hydrology just went all the shit, right?
Go ahead and show that. That says. Okay.
So this is Mo with BB. I'm the guy that looks at.
Okay.
I am a floodplain administrator. And when I get plans or drawings from the city of Martindale, we go by the most currently adopted FEMA maps to look at floodplain, floodway, and then we verify those numbers that they have provided, because that's all we can do. We've got to go by with what FEMA provides. And I hear, like I said, you know, why is it 1 foot difference here and that? We don't know that. That's where the FEMA engineers come in and design the floodplains and floodways. I'm looking at the firm maps right now. And again, they bounce all over the place too. I agree with, and I'm not sure who was talking. I agree with you on that. They do bounce all over the place, and trying to find it on a firm map where that's at. That's why we get the engineer to do that study and report, and then we review it to make sure it's in compliance with FEMA's maps. Trying to figure, and again, without having the information that was provided in front of me, it's hard to see. I mean, I can see Northwest River Road where it runs, but I don't know exactly where these houses are, because on the FEMA maps, they don't have addresses and roads.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. Mr. Olson, this is Dorothy McGovern.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you sign off on the permitting?
Well, that's what I'm trying to, that's the other thing that I'm looking up, because usually when I do a floodplain for any city, I save the file. And that's what I'm looking for, is I can't find that file anywhere for 609 Northwest River Road. That's what I'm trying. That's what I've been sitting at my computer listening and on my phone, but I'm on my computer trying to figure out, where is that file? When was it signed off on? Because I'm not finding it anywhere in my system.
Okay, regardless of that, if something, what you did sign off on something, how long is that good for? Is that permit good for? Does it have a expiration date?
No, I mean, if we approve it and we look at everything and everything is approved to be, they meet the regulations of the NFIP
Mhm.
and that, as long as they meet the regulations of the NFIP and they're above, the new FEMA guidelines are a 2 foot free, what they call a freeboard. As long as they're above that, and that's good until they build another structure and then they got to start the process over again. It's per structure. It's not the whole subdivision. It's house at 609 and now we're going to do 611 and now we're going to do 623. Everyone is their own separate project. It's not, you don't give a blanket review for the whole thing and say, yep, you're good, because you don't know what the elevation is per structure that is being put on that place, on that property.
Okay.
So, if I could have the floor just for a second.
Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna cut anybody off if I don't have to, but I'd like to bring this question and answer session to an end fairly soon. We've been here an hour with our guests, and I think all of us could sit in here and ask questions till midnight.
Yes, sir.
But if you got most of what you want to know out of the way, I appreciate it if we could let these gentlemen,
Well,
go their way and we can go to the next agenda item.
our city engineer just walked in, so.
Oh, all right. In that case, we can talk.
So people, just brief, I think, Mike had a question about the, shear strength of a full joint between the,
They talk us?
Yeah.
They did 24 feet deep with piers, 2 feet diameter, sonotubes with rebar cages. They let it cure, and I assume they're putting 3/4 inch lag bolts with epoxy to attach the steel column to the concrete. Okay, my question is, what is the shear strength if something hits that, like a tree or something like that? And in my opinion, I can say, I'm no engineer, but wouldn't it be best to put steel all the way down that 24 deep so you don't have a cold joint? You got steel all the way up. That's all. That's it.
yes,
Yes, of course.
I'm not a structural
There
engineer.
you go. There you go. Help yourself. Yeah.
I'm not a structural engineer.
I'm not an
I
engineer.
don't know. I can't say that if you built a 10-foot thick pier in the ground, something floating down the river during a storm event might not have an impact on it. Whether it's 1 foot or 10 foot. I completely understand the concerns with floodplains. We all are pretty sensitive to floodplain issues currently because of all of the events that happened in July, not in just one place, but multiple places across the state. I can tell you that FEMA floodplains were established for one purpose:
insurance.
to create a flood insurance rate map so that individuals could buy government-backed insurance. So not when, or not if they flood, but when they flood, they will be able to file a claim to rebuild, hopefully in a better condition. The FEMA regulations, FEMA floodplains didn't start until the early 70s. In the world of technology, they've only been around, 50 years, this modeling and this hydrology and all of that. And it's progressed slower than other technology. I know Martindale got some recent maps in 2020, but the maps prior to that were dated 09, 12. I mean, so 8 years, 10 years, where, our cell phones are updated twice a year these days. And so, the FEMA system, the floodplain ordinances that are in effect are to meet minimum standards, just like the building codes, just like everything else. There's a minimum standard, there's a better standard. FEMA says if you meet all these minimum conditions, you can build your house near water. We like to be near water. It doesn't mean that if we meet all of these minimum standards, you're still not gonna flood. It doesn't mean that it's always gonna be safe. I can tell you, there were homes on piers built according to FEMA standards up and down the Guadalupe River that lifted off of those piers and floated down the river, because I don't care how big the pier is, when the water gets up to this elevation, it's gonna pick that structure up and float down the river. So with all that being said, I understand the concern, but if a development comes in and they check the boxes and they meet the minimum standards, a prudent buyer is also gonna understand their own risk in that situation, or should.
For no guarantees.
There's not, I mean, if we, and I try to be more of a realist in situations. We have traffic fatalities every day of the year in every place in the country. We haven't stopped building roads, and we haven't stopped making cars. And I myself bought both of my children a car, knowing those consequences, those risks that are out there. I mean, it's everything we do, there's a potential risk in a situation. What can we do? We can do our best to minimize those risks, to meet the requirements that we need to make. But the only safe way to minimize risk is to eliminate it completely. And how do you do that?
So, y'all, pardon me, please, but I'm going to move to the next agenda item on account of time constraints. And I apologize for cutting you off like I did, but I just got to get going here.
Understood. I said what I had to say.
Thank you very much. The only other thing is, if there's any other questions, concerns, just feel free to send them across our way, written by email. I can share my email later on, and we can reach out back to our experts and provide written responses.
I was hoping you to say that, and I'm sure you will have some later questions, not during this active meeting.
Yeah.
That's
Great. And we're always open to have that type of relationship.
Thank you so much for
Thanks.
coming in, we really appreciate it.
Enjoy each other. Thank you.
Thanks for having me come in.
You have.
Thanks for having us.
No, I'm, yeah.
I'm with you, my left ear, I gave her.
We'll talk.
Take some cookies. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have some cookies.
please, I'm getting ready to start.
So let's go to 1.2, George, resiliency.
I can't pass up the food.
No, they're good, actually, good.
Resiliency.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank y'all for coming, guys. Anybody got any comments about the comprehensive plan?
No, I keep it on there just in case there are any updates, and that's fine.
Well, it's been on there for a long time, I know we have to keep it there, but it seems like we've been waiting on a response from somebody about this, and we never get it.
And I think there's still a survey
I'd like to
out
keep
there that everybody's supposed to fill out. The resiliency plan. There's still a survey out there posted for the public to run.
I couldn't get through that, though, like, well, I did wrong.
Well,
I tried.
I would give you tips, but actually I keep forgetting to do.
So, anybody got any action item on this agenda item?
No.
Well, let's just leave it there and move on to
Okay.
1.3 would be the joint parks and river meeting.
Which we had,
Yeah.
went well, and our new next meeting has already been scheduled for February, yeah.
Well, I thought that meeting did go well. There was more to our agenda than the first one was. That's my cookie, Mike.
Oh,
Go back there and take two.
I'm
Seriously.
done.
The 24th.
Okay.
24th of February.
Yes. River Appreciation Weekend is going to be October 17th and 18th. There's a whole itinerary.
Okay.
Saturday morning, there's gonna be something for the kids in phase one parks. Then something else at the library, can't remember what, then the San Marcos River Foundation is gonna have their thing from 1 to 5, I believe. And then it comes back here at the Cook Building, I believe, for some movies.
Okay, so there.
What about the Kansas weekend?
What's this weekend?
There's some kind of river, something, there'll be some. Especially in Chelsea, though.
Oh, that was rescheduled. Sorry. Yeah, that we decided to combine everything.
So it's already the Oxford 50. So there's nothing this summer.
A Riverview subdivision, that's on the agenda because, they were not being compliant with, pollution, silt fencing.
Well, they finally put up some of that stuff.
So they put some on the Quail Run side, and then on the Northwest River side, they put a ditch in with transverse silt
Yeah, what do
fencing.
those things do across that ditch?
I don't know, but I assume,
That is the spillway. That's the rock going into the spillway.
but that's catching a lot of silt anyway.
Where are you talking?
This is Skull,
Oh, yeah.
so there's the header,
Yeah.
and then
I know, but to be honest, I really went to TCEQ about it. They never got back to me at a lot. They never. Anyway, I made a report, TCQ never got back to me, I went online basically to find out, and it was,
we put on council.
they didn't send me anything. But I looked up and the status was, closed,
That means they.
or resolved.
Resolved, they comply. That means they listen to you.
Well,
Cause I sent them one and they, I had a phone one.
maybe, but they did a poor job of compliance, or an incomplete job.
So is that erosion?
So anyway,
Crazy like that, cause that destruction?
That's the header they just put in for the double, so originally there was 136 going in.
Yeah.
Now there's, and it's well done, but it's on a zigzag, but there's 236 going through the road. That is the header as it leaves the road.
Yeah.
And that's the downhill side, the downstream side that's already eroded through.
well, you should show that to either Bernard or Turk or Freeland, Gary.
I forgot to bring that, I didn't know this was on the agenda, then I would have sent it, had more than pointed out. So, sorry.
Well, then I don't think there's an action issue here, except let's keep it on the agenda.
On Riverview, you mean? Well, I was gonna take it off, but maybe now we should keep it on.
Well, the erosion needs to.
Yeah.
I put on there, not just Riverview, but communicate with Bernard about maybe Matthew can do it.
I'll send this to Dorothy and she can forward it. 'Cause I have to stay out of it. I'm not allowed to talk to,
Right, okay, but,
because I'm on council, I can't talk to one over.
Okay.
but we could, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
So, it's right.
I have to do it as a council. I can't do it individually without the permission of the council.
But the river board can make a recommendation that the city do something about communicating with Bernardo, or one of us could
Well,
communicate.
one of us can directly send that photo to either Bernardo or his people. Yeah. And you can ask about it. If something's gonna be done about this.
Well,
about
the
it.
other thing we can do, what we usually do anyway, make a recommendation to the city, send them that photo and say, we recommend to the city of Martindale, someone contact Bernardo or the other, whatever appropriate person there is, and make sure they're aware of that erosion.
Except that, just so you know, every recommendation we make is sort of a pain in the butt, because now there's another form that took me half a day to.
Who came up with that form? Oh, sorry about that.
What form?
That form we have to do now to make a recommendation to the city.
Well, and not only that, and then one of us has to show up at city council meeting, and it's supposed to be Jay, but it's usually not. And that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Hello.
You sure?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, I just wanted to say real quick, I heard you guys just talking about the erosion. And that is a problem that is already being addressed. We've brought it to, Randy brought it to me, and then Pete and Mr. Freeland, Mr. Freeland and Mo and the developer and the contractor for the developer are all working on, I think just today they submitted some new drawings of how they plan to repair it. So
Okay.
we're very aware of that, and they are going to fix it like in the next week. So if it does not, if you see that they're working on it and they are not working well enough, like it doesn't look like it's repaired well enough, let me know your concerns and I'll bring them back. But so far, yeah, they're getting all new drawings done so that they can repair it and make it work.
Okay, thank you so much for that update.
Thank you.
So no new recommendations to council is needed at this time, so you're off the hook.
Oh, you mean for tomorrow?
Yeah, you were saying you didn't want to do another recommendation because it's a pain in the butt now. So
Oh.
no, you don't have to. That's one less. You can check it off.
Right, right. But I do, going back to the Dreams subdivision and our recommendation, I think we have our questions answered.
I do too.
So would like to retract our previous recommendation about getting clarification from.
I don't see that we need that previous recommendation now.
Right, so we can retract it and
I would think
have it removed from the city council meeting tomorrow.
How do we do
I'm going to, did you hear that, Laura? Mayor?
Yes, I did. Yes, I heard it.
With your fly.
I heard that.
We're gonna retract, that recommendation that took me forever to submit.
I was planning to put it in a frame and hang it in the council room, so you'll still get full credit and acknowledgement. Right on.
Well, I will be there, so I can speak, Jake, just say basically we retract it, so
Okay.
just, they can move the meeting on and not know that that works.
Yeah, that works.
I believe we've covered
I think that's everything.
the agenda except for anything y'all want to put on for the next meeting.
Did you, and do you want anything removed? Dreams? Keep that on for now.
Well,
We should keep it on. I'd like to follow
I
the
didn't, I
instruction.
was unable to hear everything the mayor said about, they were different, and they say they were addressing that erosion that Matthew showed.
Yep.
So that doesn't need to be a recommendation.
Well, she wants us to kind of follow the repairs and make sure it's done.
Well, we can do
And that still has, questions about,
so then we should keep the Dreams on the agenda until that's done.
okay. Please, I would like to.
Any additions for October?
I would remove the joint meeting.
Yeah, because that's not for February, and we've already addressed the last one. Okay, that's good point.
No, that's the only thing I would change is remove them.
Until we get closer.
Yeah,
All right,
I make the motion, we adjourn.
Dorothy,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting's adjourned at 1 p.m.
You guys did great.
2:10, 2:10.